everybody. Welcome to three flannels and a tank top. Three flannels and a tankini. Is it a tank top or a tankini?
It's a tank top.
What's a tankini?
I don't know. What is it?
I think they're just thinner straps, maybe.
A bikini tank top?
Is it a tank top that also like my baby's onesies? They snap up under so you can wear the whole thing.
Yeah, just imagine it as a onesie. You don't know what's happening below this table.
No
and
pants,
it's 4 times more expensive.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is called the Earthborne Games Podcast. I'm your host, Anders Carlson. Joining me, as always, are the Earth Game crew.
You were doing so good.
The Earth Game crew is here. I think it's the first time we've all four, the original crew, have been together for months.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
I mean,
while.
we had like the big extravaganza where everybody was here, but yeah.
No, I wasn't there.
Oh, that's right.
I wasn't
Right.
there. So this is it. This is the one. We're joined by Evan Simonet. What color is your flannel today?
Yellow and black. It looks like
Wonderful.
one of those shirts that if you have the right light on it, people will argue to the death that it's actually purple and silver or something. If I change the lighting in here.
Yeah, it's like the flannel version of the dress.
Yeah.
Oh, the dress. I missed that era of life. I remember, does everybody know what we're talking about here?
I don't.
There was this internet phenomena where there was a random photo of a dress hanging on a hanger, and some people saw it as gold and white, and others saw it as like purple and black.
Yeah.
Huh.
Like the colors were different depending
You
on.
seriously missed this hit? What were you doing in 2015?
I just remember being on a fun trip with my girlfriend in New York City, and we were in this cool restaurant, and somehow everybody in the whole restaurant was involved in learning about this at the same time. We're going around at different tables. What do you see?
I saw purple and black. I don't know.
Yeah,
I saw gold and white.
I didn't really
that's
get
so weird.
sucked into any internet nonsense until
Nonsense.
until
That's cool theory.
like 2020. Most of the time, I was able to just completely ignore it. I think at that point, 2014, you say?
I don't
Is
know.
that-
Yeah, it
is
was
that what it
around
was?
then.
Yeah,
I'd
that's
say.
probably when I got off of the internet for a while because I was on Facebook and I was like, forget this. And then I
Yeah.
Also, it was
got the heck off of there.
clearly blue and black.
Yep.
Was it?
Two
What was
against
the
one,
true
Anders.
answer?
I believe the true answer was blue and black because
Well,
like
kinda-
the back is overexposed and you would need to lighten the colors to get to white and gold. But like since the back is overexposed, that means the dress is overexposed, which means when you darken, it gets to the blue and black.
Leave it to Fisher. Leave it to Fisher for that.
I thought it was
answer.
magic, but you just made it less interesting now.
Anyway, Andrew, if you're curious, just Google the dress.
Okay.
Yeah, it will come up. I promise.
All right. I believe you.
Yeah, I feel like internet phenomena like that were more fun at that time. There's nothing fun.
It was innocent.
And the trends are like, they last a day now. Back then, that dress era.
Back
that
in
was
my
a good,
day,
that was a good
2015.
2 weeks. I miss
Yeah.
the hamster dance era as well.
Back when
Oh,
people
wow. Okay,
used
that's actually a throwback.
back when people almost exclusively used Twitter to share their food.
Yeah.
and that's about it.
Funny little quips.
Uh-huh.
Well, thanks for reminding us of the dress, whoever did that. And then we got Andrew Fisher. He's back.
Yeah, back from New Zealand.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's
I like your
good to be back.
ponytail, by the way.
Don't point it out. It's hidden.
I can
It's
see it here. I can see it right there.
I know. It's a secret for later. Whatever's going on here.
I just thought it was a cool new style that you were sporting.
Yeah, the side pony, the '80s side pony.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Watched
I've been curious.
Flashdance and just had to do it.
Had to do it. Had to try it. And then we've also got Andrew Navarro.
Hi. I like that the original crew is here, and
Mhm.
we've totally broken down our banter rules of not speaking until we're
Oh.
reduced. We're totally just hanging out.
Have we
Yeah.
ever followed that?
Oh yeah, usually we do. There's some laughter and maybe a little quip here or there, but usually I think we do follow those rules pretty well. Generally speaking. Not today. Yeah. Today we're like
free flowing.
This is clearly a sign of what this show is going to be like today, because we are nice and loose.
You follow the rules pretty well. I guess I go early, but I'm pretty sure I'm really bad at following rules.
That's why we always introduce you first.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a cool show. It's true. There's a lot of unique stuff happening today. We're going to be talking about this show called Fallout that you guys worked on, the game, and there's a bunch of stuff. I have a bunch of questions for you guys.
We worked on the board game.
The board game.
Yeah. What did I say?
Well,
I just said the game?
Yeah.
It's just a fairly famous video game series, so we wanted to clarify that we weren't OG video game developers.
No, I'm kidding.
Well, I just trust in the intelligence of our viewers more than you guys, I guess.
Hey, we could potentially have worked on the video game. Okay, I'm probably not old enough to have worked on Fallout 1 or 2. I'm pretty sure I was, unless they were employing children when they were in development.
When did the first one come out?
98?
Late 90s, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Evan, didn't you say you were going to try to play it? The first one? Did you do it?
Not yet, but I am committed to playing it because I'm interested in the setting now.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to be talking about Fallout and stuff and all that. And we got questions, and let's start things off. Wow, I just said that, and I didn't even read the script, but that's what you wrote for me to say. Let's start. That's crazy. Let's start things off with the Game Found update. Andrew, what is going on?
Yeah, so we did not launch the Pledge Manager last week like I said we would the following week. So that's completely in character, which is good. But we did launch it Monday night this week. So the Pledge Manager, if anyone who's listening to this does not know, the Pledge Manager on GameFound is live. That means we're in the last stages of collecting funds for the games. Last chance to pre-order the game through GameFound. But more importantly, for existing backers, it's the time to put in your shipping information, pay for shipping, and then wait until we deliver the game. So that's pretty exciting. So that'll remain open for the next month and a half or so. It's going to close on June 18th. So you have about 6 weeks. We've already had a really good return so far of people coming in and finishing their pledges. We're at, I think, at the time of this recording, about 55% of our backers have already completed their orders. So that's really awesome. That's, I think, way better than what the early completion rate we had on the first Kickstarter by a pretty significant margin within the first few days. So that's great. But we're also at since we're like 55% of people completing their orders, that's already approximately like 2,500 more people than the total number of backers we had last time. So that's pretty wild. And it was pretty, I think for the most part, a pretty good launch. There was a little bit of hiccup with some of the returning backer stuff because we had to do some back-end integration. GameFound had to do some handwork there to set up everyone's cards who were returning backers from the original campaign. And we had to troubleshoot that, or they did, and James Naylor did. And I launched the campaign like at night on Monday, and I kind of immediately regretted it because there were issues. But then it was only a few hours until the morning in the UK, so James got on and then put out those fires, and everything was fine within a couple hours. So I think overall it's been going really well. We have kind of the standard, complaints about shipping costs that people have just in general. But I stand by our shipping costs, especially since, all of our advertised costs are almost exactly what the final costs were in the Pledge Manager. So I'm pretty happy about that. But it's the discussion around shipping pricing is so aggravating to me, just because of how like big online retailers like like Amazon or Target or whatever, they've like set this expectation that shipping is free, and obviously those companies can't absorb those costs and they pass that expense on to you in other ways, and we're not profiting at all from shipping on this. We're just paying what it costs, or asking backers to pay what it costs. And I don't know, I feel like there's some people who feel like we're trying to put one over on them, but we're already subsidizing the shipping quite a bit because we're paying for any freight. We're covering that. I looked at the shipping pricing for our last campaign, which is pretty much the same. And I looked at what we paid versus what we collected, and we were in the hole about 20-30 grand. So I imagine that we'll probably be in a similar situation this time around too. We'll see. But so yeah, just everyone's concerned about shipping. Just know that we're not trying to put one over on you. Shipping is expensive. There's a human cost to it. There's a cost in fuel. All those prices have gone up. So even though places like Amazon are still doing it for free, there is a cost, and someone is paying it. So
yeah, I mean, they're not really
case,
doing it for free, right?
Us. Yeah,
they're just, Amazon's handling their last mile themselves these days. Yeah, we agree with you. We also think shipping is really expensive.
Yeah.
We would rather it wasn't, but we unfortunately have zero control over that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I really appreciate that the majority of people are super cool with it. They understand that it has a cost and know that we're not trying to milk you for cash. We're just actually trying to just cover the expense. So I always, when that conversation comes up, I always kind of forget about it until the conversation comes up again, and then I'm just super irritated when I see the conversation. So thank you for letting me vent, and that's about it. But GameFound's going great. We got some additional pledges. We just
What's
got
the total at?
We're at like 2.7 million.
Oh,
yeah, which is amazing. We just got an awesome new review from Space Biff today.
Space Biff.
Yep, this is one that Corey was really looking forward to us getting as a.
Nice.
It's a really well done written review. It's very funny. Really well done. It's a pretty short read.
There's no
but he
video?
had some really great things to say. No, just a written piece.
Oh, he does, Dan Thoreau. He does like kind of old school written reviews.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really positive. So that was really great to see. And yeah, so things are still going great. We have some stuff cooking in the background that I'm looking forward to sharing with everyone once some things get finalized. But a lot of cool opportunities happening for us that I'm looking forward to sharing once they get sewn up. So stay tuned.
Stay right here on the Earthborne game cast.
Earth Games.
The Earth Game cast. Sounds great. And wasn't there something that had to do with the threshold of like 2.5 or something?
I don't think so. No,
I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, that seems weird. I don't think we'd do that.
Maybe it was a dream.
Yeah, I think so.
It was we're all gonna wear flannels.
That's right. Yeah, 2.5 million. Everyone wear flannel, but I refuse. So
yeah. You were a onesie.
That's right. Onesies for life.
Speaking of teases, I teased at the Fallout retrospective earlier. And so, as many of you know, the Fallout TV show is, I think, done now, right? It was just the whole thing came out at once.
Yeah, I think they just dropped the whole thing.
It dropped and everybody likes it. And since then, all the Fallout stuff, the games, the Fallout 76, saw a massive spike in players. And also the Fallout board game rose to the top of BGG's hotness. And I thought, this is my idea, since we Since we have 3 of the people who worked on the Fallout board game here on Earth at Earthborne at Earth Game, thought it'd be interesting to do a bit of a retrospective on the development of the game. So, could you guys all tell us what you did on that game? Let's start with Evan.
Yeah. I worked on some aspects of the graphic design of the game, along with another graphic designer who worked at FFG at the time, Monica Helland, but I think she works for a video game company now or something. And yeah, that's pretty much what I did.
You did the
I
graphic
can elaborate
design.
on that later.
How about you, Fisher?
Well, I was, I guess, game designer, lead designer. I worked, Nathan Hajek, another designer at FFG, did a little bit of work on it as well. He came in and helped with like the combat system and stuff when I was kind of underwater on a bunch of the mission design stuff that we'll talk about later. But I was kind of the primary designer on the game. So I saw, and at FFG, our designers that doesn't just mean like, with a lot of contract-based board game companies, what you'll get is like a designer who kind of designs the core mechanics of a game and then sells it to a studio, and then that studio kind of produces the game. Our designers saw the game all the way from like concept to completion, right? Like going through the files at the end. So, we have producers and stuff who kind of help with the file work, but when I say I was the designer, I saw the game's design all the way from the beginning to the end.
How about you, Andrew?
Well, this is the perfect timing because there's a truck now that's pulled up behind me that's making a bunch of noise, and there's a dog that's barking at it. So
we can't hear it. We can't
hear it. Well, I had just muted, so like hopefully everything is fine.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I was creative director on Fallout the board game a year now. Yeah,
barely.
There it is.
That's okay. It's quaint.
Good. I was creative director. This was one of the first projects that I was creative director on, like kind of from start to finish at FFG. So, I was involved pretty early on with some of the concepting, and then talking with Bethesda at the very first in-flight report at Gen Con that I spoke at. I did a section on Fallout, and that was super fun. So I remember doing that and bringing a couple of the designers of the Fallout video game, Fallout 3, up on the stage to talk. Those guys were super cool. So I was creative director, so that means I oversaw mostly the art and the graphic design, and then was there to do like milestone play tests with Fisher and the design team as we worked through issues of design and gave feedback on that stuff.
What year did the game come out?
I think like 2017 is what it came out. So we were working on it like probably 2015, 2016.
Yeah. This was your project right after Rune Wars, right?
Yes, I think so. The sequencing of all the game design stuff I worked on is so like it all kind of mushes together. But I think this was what I moved on to after Rune Wars.
Did it coincide with a video game or no? Like, did it come out at the
Not particularly. We share the cover art with Fallout 4 because that was the video game that had come out most recently. And then 76 came out a couple years later. So we were kind of between Fallout 4 and 76, but we didn't like line it up to directly coincide. We were trying to be a little more quintessentially Fallout. We touch on, after the expansion, we have content from every video game except Tactics, I guess. Every mainline Fallout game.
Yeah.
Well, let's start from the beginning. How was the game originally conceived? What was it like working with Bethesda?
Yeah, so we had actually been working with Bethesda on a couple games before this. We did like the Doom board game with them. And so we had a pretty good working relationship already with them before this came about. I don't actually know. I don't know, Andrew, if you know the details of exactly like beyond that. We all thought a Fallout board game would be rad. Like if there was like an exact licensing impetus for this game or not.
Yeah, well, I know that Steve and Chris were talking with Bethesda about just licenses in general, and I believe that both Doom and Fallout were negotiated at the same time.
Okay.
And then because we did Doom first, I believe Doom came before Fallout, if
Yep.
I'm correct.
2015, right?
Yep, or 2016.
Oh yeah.
And then and then Fallout followed, and we were talking to them also about doing some Elder Scrolls things. That's kind of where the Elder Scrolls stuff started. They really wanted to stick with Skyrim at the time. There's more and more Skyrim stuff, but we decided not to do anything with Skyrim, but just with Fallout and Doom. And I remember we maybe talked to them about doing some, like Fallout Shelter, which we originally declined, but then went back. Then I went back to them at one point and then said, "Hey, let's do that."
Yeah, we did it a little bit after that game. Honestly, the Fallout Shelter design I mostly did for fun while working on this game. Like I just kept having ideas because I was playing Fallout Shelter at the time. Just like it seemed like the thing to do to immerse myself in Fallout, and so I was like, as I was playing Fallout Shelter, I was like, well, this is how I designed the board game. And so like most of those mechanics kind of came together while I was working on this game as well. So these
cool.
two kind of ended up being designed a little concurrently.
That's cool. Yeah, I remember playing your prototype of Fallout Shelter for the first time, and that was, I think, the most complete pitched prototype I'd ever played at FFG, and everything just worked, and it was super fun. I don't really know if we even really changed a whole lot from that initial. I mean, sure, there were little things that we tweaked here and there, but it was pretty fully formed, I think, before we even started.
Oh yeah, like I said, I designed. We basically tweaked item abilities and space costs. Like there was a lot of tweaking of economies. James Niffen helped me as we were trying to tune extra workers and their cost relative to their output and stuff. But because I kind of concepted it while working on this game, it was mostly fully formed even when it went to pitch.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that's our first. I think that was FFG's first worker placement game.
Yeah, I think so.
Designed in house, yeah, which is pretty wild to think of.
But yeah, so for the mainline Fallout game, we had this license with Bethesda, and I remember as far as what actually the game was going to look like. I remember, were you at the meeting at I think we went to La Casita, and it was I know CTP, Christian Peterson, owner of FFG at the time, was there. I think Michael Hurley was there. I think Brian Schomburg was there. I don't remember. Were you there as creative director at that point, or did you come on as creative director after we started on this one?
If all those guys were there, then I was either there or I couldn't be there for one reason or another.
I just remember we were at this long La Casita table, and then they put me right in the middle, so it was me and all the FFG bigwigs around me, and then people just slung ideas at me this entire meeting, and I'm just furiously writing, and I'm barely eating my enchiladas, and that I think a lot of good stuff, and a lot of what became Fallout came directly out of that meeting, in concept, that laid out the vision pretty closely. As often happened with Christian would have very strong ideas, and so designers knew to kind of you wanted to make sure you carried through. I would always the thing I would always do with Christian was he'd pitch a bunch of ideas, and I would go back through him and ask him to be prioritize them as musts or maybes, because you want to know which Christian ideas he felt really strongly about. And anyway, a lot of what was in that notebook from that meeting, I think actually you can see in the final game. And that is a lot of what's good in the game came out of that meeting. But actually, this kind of does preview one of my regrets about the game, which is that a lot of stuff got thrown out in that meeting, right? A lot. And probably too much stuff got thrown out in that meeting. And like, especially like I designed a few games, but like I probably wasn't as confident in my design abilities as I am today. And I think like if you put me today back in that same position, I would have probably made the decision that we needed to focus and like uh, cut a couple things or like decide which things were the priorities. But at the time, I was like, all right, we talked about all this, we can make this all work. And I probably kept out of like desire to fulfill the original vision, probably tried to serve too many masters with the game at the end, which we can talk about in a little bit. But like even at the visioning step, like as I look back, that is one step. I remember kind of having this feeling like this is a lot, and I'm like, I can do this, but I maybe shouldn't have tried.
I have a question of my own. What kind of game is it?
Yeah, so we'd
Tell
call
me
it
what
like
the game is like.
we'd probably call it like an adventure game.
Yeah.
Is kind of the genre you usually kind of refer to. It's semi-cooperative, which means like you're all kind of competing, but you can end up allying and working together in kind of this flexible way. But it's an adventure game where you each play as a character and they level up and progress and complete missions to try to like complete a story, and ultimately get the most victory points effectively.
Yeah.
And
it's very.
kind of
I think it's a
explore
very classic adventure board game in that way, where there's you're given like a little scenario that kind of sets the rules for that particular game session. It's just a one-off game. It's not like Earthborne Rangers where it's like an ongoing campaign. You sit down, you play it, and you're done. So you have this big modifier of the mission, and then the main story, which equates to one of the main stories in the Fallout video games. And that kind of sets the win conditions for what you need to be doing. It sets the different factions that are moving around on the table and doing stuff. But then the game itself, you're just kind of tooling around, doing whatever. And that part's always my favorite.
Yeah.
It's like this map made up of these like hex tiles like this. And then you kind of like, you've got a little miniature that represents you, and you go around and like move around the map and explore, and little like enemies pop up and you can fight them. And then you go to different locations, and then there's this big deck of different encounter cards. And then you have a little encounter and read a little story and make decisions at the the location you go to. And then there's these encounter decks for the different places, and there's this big card library that the different stories and encounters constantly customize the encounter decks so that what you're encountering changes based on the decisions you make. So the idea is that like even though it's one-off, you can play the same scenario multiple times because like your decisions really change the wasteland and the types of encounters you're having. So you see a lot of ramifications of the decisions you make.
I really like Fallout. Unsurprisingly, I really like this game. It's probably one of the FFG games that I've played the most with my family.
Cool.
Awesome.
Evan, I saw you giggle a little bit there.
Oh, I was just thinking about how difficult those story cards were to lay out because they're so dense. And there's a thing called anchored text objects in InDesign, which are very helpful, but if you have too many of them, it can really slow the machine. For whatever reason, InDesign, which is the program we use to lay out our cards, isn't very efficient with resources or something. I don't know, it's just very slow, and it can crash. And I just remember the game crashing, or the program crashing a lot while trying to lay these out and trying to get as much text in there as possible, but still expressing some level of graphic design flair, like that yellow bar that Fisher is showing at the top of the card. There's like a little lightning bolt kind of zigzag design, and that was a lot more pronounced, but I quickly realized that I had to dial a lot of stuff back as I was working and just be really efficient with the layout.
Yeah, these may look unassuming, but like you'll notice that like there's these different colored graphics, and they have like textures and elements at how they end, so they're raster graphics, and then so are these little like arrows here. So all of this are different pieces of graphics in InDesign. So instead of like being able to just flow with the text or like be part of the text, instead each of these graphics is anchored to a point in text, and as the text changes, InDesign moves all of these raster graphics around. And since it's
Mhm.
doing it all automated and it cascades, right? Like I add some flavor text up here and then it cascades this yellow bar down, which pushes this white bar down. You can see like there are different heights on these two cards.
Yeah.
And then that pushes the blue bar down, which pushes this down, which pushes this down. And so that cascading, oh my God.
Yeah.
The files were awesome, but InDesign was not designed to handle that
No.
much anchored object.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that because that like you show that like that stack of cards is thick.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
a
Oh, yeah,
lot
this-
of those
Look at that.
cards.
Yeah. And that's, I don't even think
That's just
everything
one. That's the
here.
settlement
Yeah.
cards, right? Or something.
I think this is the card library. Yeah, so this is, I think, just the expansion card library.
Oh,
Where's my
okay.
card set? Yeah.
I'm forgetting the names of the cards.
Yeah, I think it's the settlement and the wasteland cards. So we've kind of gone into talking a bit about the design and development.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, go ahead, Anders.
Yeah, what was the design and development process like?
Yeah, so like I got to tool around. I have this prototype box that we'll show off. I think later, right? There's a listener question, and like that has dry erase markers and stuff. And so I did a lot of prototyping with that early on to try to kind of figure out what the core of the game was. We were really trying to settle on like I wanted to kind of, I don't know, not just make this. We had like a couple adventure games at FFG, like Runebound, for example, was one of our classic ones. And I wanted to kind of, as I was doing adventure game research, there was a lot of folks who were like kind of blah about adventure games. And so I was trying to bring something like interesting and innovative and like very Fallout. And like one big thing in Fallout is that you make a lot of choices and those choices alter this version of the wasteland you're in. So like we talked a little earlier about these encounter cards and like that you make decisions in them and then they change the wasteland and change the things you run into. So like if you decide to like betray somebody, you might run into them again and they're real mad about it. And like the board game kind of adapts. So we ended up going with that kind of your decisions altering the wasteland as kind of our shtick. But, that wasn't automatically where we landed. I started with all sorts of different shticks. We had like, I tried these kind of like way more deep storytelling encounters that actually like in some ways resemble the Earthborne campaign guide. There was one wild version of the map that was all like spaceless movement, so like open like a miniatures game where you had this little ruler and you like moved around through the wasteland in different areas where irradiated and stuff. And so like it was a lot more kind of like free form movement, like a minis game, except way zoomed out because you're still like exploring this big wasteland. Kind of inspired by some of the overworld travel in Fallout 1 and 2. That ended up going by the wayside because it was way too fiddly. Like I played a couple versions of that and it was like cool and worked, but we spent way too much of the rule book talking about how to resolve movement that really didn't matter too much, right? But anyways, we tried all sorts of those different shticks, but at the end of the day, the decisions and that morphing was and kind of it changing the wasteland ended up being like what we found the most satisfying. The big long story encounters, like when you're at a board game that you want to wrap up in a couple hours, compared to a big long campaign game like Earthborne, like at the board game, we wanted the encounters to be snappy, so we wanted to keep them on cards. But the choices ended up being really cool. There was just really cool moments, especially in multiplayer, where one player would make a decision and then somebody else would stumble upon the ramifications of that decision. Like somebody reactivated this factory making Protectatrons, and then like somebody else has to wander into this area full of Protectatrons because of this choice somebody else made. And those moments really shined during testing. And so that's what we ended up focusing on.
Awesome. What about you other guys? What was it like? What did you guys do? Is that a good question?
Go ahead, Evan.
Yeah, I mean, So I was at a point in the pipeline where all this stuff was getting hammered out while I was working on it, but really, like, I wasn't clued in on the design process as a graphic designer. I was just taking semi-final things and building graphic design around it.
Yeah, what were we doing when we pulled you in for the first time? Like, what stage was the game at?
I remember the map tiles and the cards were just all the classic FFG playtest prototype. Like, you find graphics online to represent things, and I built all the boundaries and the different color coded areas on the map tiles while the art was being commissioned. So when the art was finally dropped behind that stuff, it really pulled it together. So yeah, I was brought in. I don't know if I started when Monica was like the lead graphic designer. I don't know if I started when she was already working on it or if we started at the same time. I can't remember, but yeah, my approach to it, because I wasn't really familiar with the setting of Fallout. I still haven't played a Fallout game. I finally finished the series and I loved it. But I knew, like, the surface level lore, it's post-apocalyptic. It had kind of a cynical humor and social commentary aspect to it. And it was all through, like, the lens of, retro futurism. Like, as far as I know, like, there was nuclear war in the 50s, and then the aesthetic of that just kind of carried into the future. Is that sort of how it
a
works?
little bit. The present at nuclear war was basically like the 50s idealized nuclear future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it's kind of the present before the apocalypse is that idealized sci-fi.
It's how that idea saw the present or the future or whatever. Yeah. So I latched onto all that stuff. I love that, and it was great fuel for creating graphic design. And my approach to it was sort of twofold. Like, certain graphic design elements were going to represent actual in-world things, like Pip-Boy related things. There's like these skill cards that were associated with, the special skills. And then there was the mission sheets, which were double-sided and represented like a computer display. And those were really fun to work on because I got to explore. What Fisher is showing right now is like one of our mini cards for a skill that you can purchase with experience points or something. Is that how it worked?
Yeah, if you already had this, I can show off the player board a little later. The player board is like the thing I really love about this game. But
yeah, it's pretty cool.
the cool thing about these cards, we've talked previously about black plate replacement, about the idea that, like, to localize text, the text can only be printed in black. But for those of you listening, this card has bright green text. So Evan, do you want to?
Yeah.
How is that done?
So that was a process that Michael Silsby, who is he's one of the longest graphic designers there. I think he still works at FFG. He worked on a lot of games like Netrunner and things, a lot of great games. And he was aware of this process where you could replicate a reverse text kind of effect without requiring an extra cost on the studio to pay for extra plates. And that's something that, Navarro, you've talked about from time to time for the partners when they translate. Basically, you have CMYK, and you have to stay within the parameters of CMYK, and especially black, because black is printed on top of the rest of the colors, and that's always text, and that text can be removed and replaced with translated text easily without incurring a cost. Anyways, with this black plate, with this I don't know, overprinting, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Overprinting technique. You just make how do I describe it easily?
You effectively punch the letters out of the black. So the letters and what you're seeing there are green are reverse. They're not actually printed. It's the black around it that's printed over the green that creates that effect.
And to do that technically in InDesign, you have to create what's called a spot color, I believe, or a certain trait for your black text, where you tell InDesign that this is black text, but it's only 1% black text, whereas the rest of this is 100% black text. So it creates a unique effect where the 1% black text is essentially it's not black text. I mean, it's very little, but it's still treated as such as black text, just much less. And you print over like a bright color field like green, and it comes through as like a CRT monitor effect, essentially.
Mhm.
And it
Yeah,
works
so we
really well
actually-
for this game.
Yeah, we did it
The
for
card is
TI4.
entirely green. Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
for the black cards on
Yeah.
TI4.
Yep.
So if you open that card file in InDesign and you turned off the black channel, it would just be a green card with like little scan lines. And the black text is all of the graphics. So like that little Pip-Boy like dodging a bullet, he's black plate, he's like 1% black. It's sort of hard to explain.
I understand what you're saying.
I understand it intuitively, but I can't articulate it very well. But it's really cool. And Michael Silsby, if he hadn't like explored that in his own time, this game would have not been as cool looking. So
Yeah, it's really inside baseball stuff, but it enables us to make the game look way prettier, like than otherwise.
Yeah, and I really latched onto that, and I was like, Michael, you need to show me how to do this. I want to understand it, because this would work perfect for a Fallout world where like their computer tech is basically like green glowing text against black screens. And I also like buttressed that style with by exploring like old graphical, like, oh boy, what do you call it? Dithering. Have you ever heard of dithering?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a way of creating a smooth gradient shift from one color to another, usually black to white, using clusters of pixel patterns. When a computer display is incapable of using too many colors, you figure out a way to arrange these pixels and patterns that slowly transition, and it zoomed out, it looks like a smooth gradient, but when you look up close, it's like these interesting patterns of pixels. And I knew that was like a way to graphically help players see these cards as in-world elements that were a product of like Vault-Tec, where their computers weren't capable of high-end graphics, and that's what made them quaint. So with like the mission sheets, I did a lot of that. I did a process called I would make a gradient, and I'd convert the file from CMYK or RBG to bitmap, and bitmap is basically just like black and white. And then if you adjust a couple settings, it'll convert a nice gradient shift into these pixel patterns, and then I turned that into a graphical element that I can just drop into these sheets, and that was a lot of fun. I love making those cards. And the stepping out of like the in-world representation through graphic design, the other graphic design element I explored was just kind of like a vintage ephemera, like a general vintage ephemera. And that is mainly shown in like the rules or some of the cards, like with the color choice, the text choice. I was looking up like what font was used a lot in the 50s, and it was Palomino. So I think that was the text I used for the rules, at least, maybe the cards as well. And because we were getting assets from Bethesda and not commissioning art, we had to get real creative with how to make like the rule book covers and things. So I just looked up a few like graphic design things from the 50s, and I copied some elements, and I was really happy with how it turned out. And I added distressing and stuff to make it look like it's like a piece of in-world.
They look so good.
I love doing that. It's cool. And a lot of that came from, I worked a previous job as a graphic artist for a scrapbooking company, where scrapbooking companies make paper products that people use to help give like a little flair to all their pictures in their photo album. But you're really just, it's so funny because you're making fake ephemera. Like there'd be like these, I don't know, like paper products that were supposed to look like 50s housekeeping or something. And so I would explore like what wallpaper looks like, and I would add staining to the edges. And so all that funny, like scrapbooking, like skill sets that I developed back then, I just brought right into Fallout.
That's amazing.
It's kind of weird.
That's awesome.
I think it shows, especially in these rule books.
Yeah.
Like like if you told me the person who made these had some experience with scrapbooking, I would. That makes sense, you know.
So
Sorry, go ahead, Anders.
No, you got a better question.
Out of curiosity, Evan, did you do any of the stuff involving the enemy art?
Yeah, so that was a little bit of a
art.
So Monica worked on those monster tokens. I worked on the cards that featured like assets from Bethesda, and that was difficult because they didn't always frame up in a conventional card art window that we're all used to doing, and I had to come up with an extra layer of graphic design to kind of use these clipped out items so that they'd fit in card frames in a way. And I'm not super happy with how it turned out, but those I
think turned out all right. I'm still dissatisfied to this day with those enemy tokens. But I know, Fisher, you did those screen caps yourself, right?
That's right.
On your own machine.
That's why I was gonna.
I forgot about that. I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
So we weren't, as Evan mentioned earlier, we weren't able to commission art for everything. So we had to use assets from the game to represent everything. So we had hoped to get like a big library of 3D models from Bethesda, but they were busy working on, I don't even remember specifically what product it was, but they were
working on Fallout 76,
like, crunching on some. Yeah, I think it was on 76. And so, like, getting assets from Fallout 3 and 4 while they're working on 76, there just wasn't this pipeline for it. And so...
That was always a pain in the ass trying to get the... Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, so at a certain point, we were just like, we need assets, like, now, if this game is going to come out. What do we do? And, I think that was one of our goals when we flew out there. I mean, we did a few things when we flew out there, but we were looking at having me go out and get put on a dev computer.
That's right.
And then eventually, like, our contact at Bethesda was like, listen, we're just going to put you on like an unlocked version of the game. And so I'm like, well, okay, if there's nothing special about your version of the game, I just went home. I had a gaming PC that could run Fallout 4 at max graphics. And so I just looked up command line tools, did a free camera, figured out how to spawn in every item and every monster, and then just sat in, like, I found a nice barren part of the game, and I just sat there spawning every item. Yeah. The problem is you have to spawn it into the physics system. So I'd like spawn this item and try to get it to lay nicely in the physics system and then screenshot it. Get it nice and big. I was running at 4K to try to like get the highest res we could for print. But then I would just screenshot.
You honestly didn't need to do that.
Yeah, they're like this
big. But like, yeah, no, I know it. But like, so that's every single art asset in this game is actually just something screenshotted on my home computer.
I'm so sorry. I forgot about that completely because I just saw a repository of screenshots and I just kind of forgot that you'd done all that work.
When you punched these items out and put that little like splash behind them. I actually kind of think that's rad.
These are great. Good one. You're holding a rad X right there. I don't know if you
rad.
I didn't even. The thing that always bothered me, and the story I wanted to tell, is that like I thought we were going to do the same treatment to the enemies, but we didn't. We just kind of faded their background a little.
Yeah.
But so if you look at the enemy tokens, because I had been told, oh, we're going to cut it all out, right? So I didn't put them in thematic environments or anything. I just went to the most barren area of the game to do all my command line shit. So like, you can actually see every single enemy in the game is at the same exact location. And in fact, in some of the images, after I'd screenshot an enemy, I would just like use the kill command on the console, and then their corpse would just be lying on the ground. So in a couple of these, you can actually see the corpses of all the other screenshotted enemies laying behind them.
I forgot about
in the image.
I like
That's
the idea
amazing.
that basically the tokens imply that the Fallout character you're playing is just sitting there with a gun, waiting for monster after monster to just roll up and then just shoot them, and they fall into a pile, and then the next one comes
Well,
up.
Fisher, when you and I went out there to pitch to like play the prototype of the game with Mike and showed it to Pete Hines was also there in that meeting, and Jessica I think was our main contact. We had a meeting. I don't know if you were there for it. I think you were there where I spoke with the art director on Fallout, and we talked about like what I hoped to do and then what could potentially be possible. And like I think like my hope was that we would use the like concept art paintings and things to and use those in the game because I thought that would look way better.
Yeah, like those beautiful pieces from the making of Fallout 4, that art book. Those pieces are gorgeous.
They didn't have like ready access to those things. Like they're not. So I think that's one of the things about working with a video game company, or just really just working with any kind of licensor on a board game project. They're mostly set up for people who license their property for T-shirts and coffee mugs and whatever tchotchkes that you don't really need video game assets. They have this collection of art, this kind of pre-approved artwork and graphics and stuff, like the Fallout guy, and then some like Nuka-Cola stuff. All that stuff is readily available, and you can take that and you can just print that to your heart's content, make a poster out of it, whatever, and just sell it, pay them a licensing fee. Bingo bango, you're done. But when you're making a like a board game, especially like this one, we require so many more assets, and they just don't have those available. So like I thought, one, we might be able to get 3D models, though I was already suspicious of that because we had already done Doom and had not been able to do that for Doom. And especially when it came to the environments, like the way that their assets were gathered versus the way they show up in game are like wildly different, right? Because they're not rendering things out and then saving images just in case someone needs them later on. They're all just like, here's this layer of this texture and this other layer and this layer and this layer and this layer, and then we throw them in the engine, and then they had all the effects go over them, and then that's how it looks the way it does, and it looks amazing. But when you're asking for assets, when you're asking for just your assets, it's like we get this flat texture map,
like death.
Yeah, exactly.
Texture.
Like that's the kind of stuff they have. So it's totally useless when you're making a board game. So, so when I spoke with the art director on it, like both he and I agreed, like, oh man, it'd be really cool to do like actual art. But we both knew that it wouldn't really work out for us to commission art because then it has to go through their entire approval process. And again, they're not equipped to deal with that level of approval. It's very, very difficult to do. So they can do it, but it's just slow because the people who are approving the work that you do are also the people who are working on a video game and are working under incredibly tight deadlines. So they got shit to do. So approving our board game stuff is pretty low on the priority list. So that definitely impacted things down the road. But yeah, I thought we'd be able to get those assets from that book, but they didn't even have those available. So yeah, we had to default to just doing screenshots, which when it came time for us to do the next Fallout project, we just, I remember Dane and I went out there and just took screenshots. We just did it from the beginning. Like, let's just go take some screenshots and hang out in the Bethesda office and just get this done.
Well, that one was a bit more. That was interesting too because for the core set we were working on 3 and 4, so I could just spawn everything in Fallout 4. But for
New California,
the New California expansion,
we were able to do art for that.
Dane was doing. Yeah, Dane was doing a bunch of stuff from Fallout 1 and 2, which don't have ready 3D assets available.
Nothing
right?
that really matched, but we were able. Luckily, we had an artist. I think Matt Bradbury did the art for that So we just had an artist kind of mimic the look of the current Fallout games to make things that looked kind of like screenshots, and then did them them as tiny little tokens.
To get trapped in that process.
So yeah,
but
funny.
I mean that was actually pretty easy because we already had a proof of concept of what it was going to be. So I don't remember that actually being very difficult to approve.
Well, and Matt Bradbury is the perfect artist for it because his art always kind of looked like video game characters anyway.
Yeah, I think the real I think crown jewel artwork wise for the Fallout board game are those tiles. And if I'm
beautiful.
not if I'm correct, I feel like I'm correct that Ben's Weifel did that artwork, and I think Andy Christensen was the art director on it.
Yes, I believe you're right on both cases because there was 3D renders of a bunch of these locations that Ben made, and like that was always Ben's process.
Yeah.
Right?
So we were able to get like the assets for them that then Ben turned into a 3D render and then painted over. So we got this really nice, consistent kind of isometric, almost like classic Fallout video game look to all of the Fallout 3 and 4 locations. And they turned out really great. They look so fantastic.
It turned out exactly how I'd hoped. Like I'd always, with doing the hexes, I did the hexes to kind of call back to Fallout 1 and 2, and then I wanted to do the isometric style. Since I knew the board was going to be laid out, I wanted to do that isometric style, and they turned out like I had like imagined and I had hopes, but they turned out like exactly how I'd hoped visually. Yeah, they look great.
Awesome. I think as soon as we decided to give them a specific orientation, then we were able to lock in on that because I think originally you could place them however you just put them down, or they always had an orientation.
I always had them.
Nice.
Yep. I wanted the board to look like Fallout 1 and 2, and that was like once I talked about that freeform board and stuff, but once we settled on the hexes, it was like one of the goals was to have your board kind of look like a Fallout 1 or 2 like map aesthetically from pretty early
mission
on.
Accomplished. I think it turned out great. The only thing I don't like again are those enemy tokens. I wish we'd done that bit. I wish those had been better, but I don't think I ever noticed, Fisher, that they were all in the same location or there are corpses in the background. I did not know that. That's awesome.
No one, the corpses are kind of hard to spot. No one ever cared because we did cut them out and then we kind of faded the background, so it's very subtle.
I'm looking at on Board Game Geek some of the imagery, just jogging my memory, and I forgot that I made like little Pip-Boy representations of the characters on the card backs, like the Enclave Deserter. And it totally reminds me of this stuff. Makes me think of the things I've been doing for Earthborne, like the little mini rangers.
There's lots of parallels, I think, between Fallout and EBR.
I forgot you did that. You did a little Pip-Boy version of each of the PCs.
Yep.
On the back of each of the PC's cards. And you drew all these, Evan?
Well, I think it was some of them might have been in existence. Some might have been Monica, but I know I worked on New California, and I remember doing like the Caravan Merchant, and the Enclave Deserter, and I think maybe those are the only two, or no, the Lone Gunslinger. Anyways, a lot of it was like grabbing assets from existing assets, but kind of tying them together and recreating them and stuff. So, yeah.
Andrew, you just mentioned that you see a lot of parallels between EBR and this. What else do you see?
Well, there's like Fisher mentioned, there's the decisions you make kind of changing what happens in the world. That's there. There's also like some of that enemies moving on your turn kind of on their own, the kind of the activation of the tiles, like they have little icons on them that correspond to other icons when you like draw a tile. I forget how they move, but anyway, you have an icon here and it makes things move around.
Which card. Yeah.
So that's kind of
just
similar.
move
It's one of
towards you,
the
don't they?
victory cards or
Yeah,
something.
they don't
yeah.
necessarily interact with each other, but they will come
No,
after
they
you.
mostly
Yeah,
just
they just
chase
chase
you
you around.
around.
So you can like kind of
Yeah.
like very much like the Fallout video game. You can kind of like kite these enemies all
Kite
around
them.
the board and get these big stacks of things following you. It's kind of funny.
Well, yeah, I'd say probably the biggest thing is this card library. Like the fact that you go around, like what I was talking about earlier, where you go around, you have these encounters, and from these decks of cards that then get customized based on your choices. Like there's a lot of similarities to the Path deck, to that kind of open world feel of like that going around making decisions, altering the deck, and then like relying on this deck of cards that have kind of been thematically altered based on your gameplay. There's a lot there that kind of echoes into EBR, and actually, like, I think that EBR benefits a lot from some of the decisions and mistakes that were made on Fallout. I like mentioned earlier, um the like one of my regrets about the game being that I think packed too much in. And like one of the big things with that was that, like, early on in development, we worked very, very hard on the kind of core of the game, the exploring the wasteland. And like that's the part I feel really good about and really solid about, and I think still holds up. Um, I think, as might be evident to some people who play the game, the part that came in later was a lot of like the victory conditions and like how the story overlays over. And people were really liking exploring the wasteland, and were like really into their story. But then we overlaid this larger story onto it of like the plot from the video games. And what I didn't realize at the time was just how much that would feel like it superseded people's personal stories and kind of overwrites them a little bit. Like, and so I had your personal story ending when you achieved this victory, but it was kind of independent of what was going on in the wasteland. But people started seeing like what was going on with these larger factions as the story, right? And they wanted to play through the story of the game, and that incongruity didn't quite mesh up. And so like, and I think Dane did an amazing job in like Atomic Bonds of revising this, and like people really like the game with Atomic Bonds. And so I think that speaks to how that core was really solid. But to how this, and I think that leaving in the telling of each story from each of the video games, that kind of, I think if I identified one thing that I'd probably de-accentuate if I was to come back to this game with my experience I have now, is I would actually de-accentuate this element and like the stories from the video games, and just focus on the story of your custom wasteland and your heroes. And so that mistake I made in Fallout, I think, really reflects in a lot of the campaign in EBR, right? Like, your story is the story, and the focus is on your, like, where you are. And like, we really centered that customization of the deck and how it reflects on like your agency over the valley. And so I think the parallels between Fallout and EBR enabled us to avoid some of the similar pitfalls that Fallout fell into.
I think I think though we were, I mean, because I remember, this is the thing I remember most about the development is the win condition, and like trying to come up with a win condition for it that was reflective of a video game that did not have a win condition. Instead of just embracing that, we were like, no, someone's gotta win. And I think
there was one point when I had this long conversation with, it was like me, James Niffen, I think Dane might have been there, and I was like, can we just have a game that doesn't have a win condition? Like, would it be okay to just tell a story and then walk away from your table, right? Like, and we decided that given the like how broad our market is, that we just couldn't.
Yeah. But in hindsight, obviously we could have. But I think.
Yeah, games since then have, but at the time, like, we were making this in like 2014, 2015, right? Like, there wasn't as many games that did.
It would have been a pretty daring move, and I think it would have been definitely very challenging to try to convince the people that we would have needed to convince that this is a good idea to do it that way. I think it was like I think we had challenges. Like part of the challenge when we went to Bethesda was just like getting over the hump of, hey, this game is complex. Because I remember that was a lot of the feedback we got in that meeting from Pete, who I remember just like my prevailing memory is every time he brings something up, like wanting to be simpler and like easier, and just more easier to get into. I was just like, man, you wouldn't have come to us if that's what you wanted. Like this is what we do. This is an FFG style of game. So this is what our audience will expect, and don't worry, everything will be fine. And I remember he eventually just like left that meeting. I don't remember if he even said goodbye. But I think he just kind of realized like, oh yeah, it's fine. They got it under control. I don't need to insert myself here because they let us pretty much do what we wanted. I don't remember I remember we got notes from them, but I don't remember them being too onerous. At least the ones that percolated up to me. I think they were pretty chill about the whole thing, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, like they had a good amount of involvement and a lot of good notes, but all of them were very implementable. Like, I don't think we pushed back with
no,
Bethesda
and I think
much.
they're all like in service of just making the game better. They weren't trying to like say, no, your game needs to be this other thing, which I thought was really good. They really respected those ground rules we laid out at the beginning.
Yeah, you could really tell. I think you could really tell that they were game developers, right? Like compared to some licensors we've worked with who aren't necessarily. Like they really appreciated. So their feedback felt like it appreciated and was aware of a lot of like game design challenges.
Yeah.
And so in that way, Bethesda was always very great to work with.
Absolutely. I think like for me, that was always the way I felt about the game too. I think I always loved the exploring the wasteland and just walking around and checking things out, and then the game just kind of ends. And it's fine. But the things you remember and the things that are enjoyable about it have nothing to do with that sheet that's telling you how the game the main story progresses, in my opinion.
I think there's a kernel of like cool in the victory condition, in like that you have these cards and you have these hidden allegiances, and you can kind of like, as you play the game, you can kind of swing one way or the other, and based on the cards you're drawing, and like it's a little uncertain, not only to other players, but sometimes you might hedge your bets and be able to swing, go in with one faction or the other and kind of wait. That is kind of neat. But the way that dynamic is cool, but the overall dynamics of the system, like you said, somebody just ending the game before the story is over, the fact that this story kind of feels like it supersedes your personal story in the Wasteland, I don't think that stuff landed, and it doesn't mesh with what I think the best part of the system is, which is this deck, this map, and the thing I have to show off still, which is this player board. I love this thing.
I love that thing too.
Like, this is one of my favorite elements of the game. It's this double layered player board, and the way you level up your character is you get experience points, which is this little gray pip, and it goes along special, which are all the stats in the game. But we didn't want to like fiddly tracking your stats. Instead, when you level up, you just draw one of these tokens, and then you get to level up that stat. Right? I think you draw two, pick one. And then that stat is now, you're better at that stat. When you like test that stat and use that stat, you're better at it. But then this XP peg only goes in the holes where you already have a letter filled in. So that way we get level scaling. So then once you've gone through this whole track, you level up again. And so as you level up slower, but like in a very kind of emergent, nice way. And similarly with emergence, as you take damage, you move this little HP peg down, and you have this little rad peg, and you move that up as you take rads, and if they ever meet, you die. And so like this works just like the rad and health bar in the game, but really intuitively. And I love how the graphics go from that green to that red, so it feels both like rads and health. Like this player board, I also love this player board.
I feel like I feel like that was shortly after I had played Scythe, and I know I really wanted to do a double board. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
because we were chatting about this on the Discord, and I don't remember. I feel like you had something pretty close to this in your original prototype, but I can't necessarily remember. But yeah, I love how this turned out. I think it's fantastic. I think yours just had little cubes.
Yeah, I don't
if I remember correctly, it was like cubes and it was.
Yeah, I think it was all cubes. And then like the pegs worked out. The pegs feel great. They don't like it's as stuck as some other pegs. And then there's like little sockets for your gear and which gear you have equipped down at the bottom. It's like just as far as UI goes.
Yeah,
love this
nice
thing.
work. That was Monica, right? She did that. Yeah.
Yep.
Great work, Monica. Excellent graphic.
I remember
design.
there was like maybe there might have been a concern with
she
the
is.
die line being capable of doing that as well too. So I mean, it was just a great all around feat of production, if I'm remembering correctly.
Very cool. Very cool. And lastly, how did the game do after release?
Well, I think we touched on that a little bit as far as like reception goes. I think that people align with my reaction, the reaction I talked about earlier to the system, where people didn't like the scoring condition as much. They kind of bounced off of that and found it a little unintuitive and not very fun. And I agree. I think like that didn't do the rest of the game a service. But as Andrew mentioned, Dane Beltrami, he did the New California expansion and then the Atomic Bonds expansion. And the Atomic Bonds expansion specifically was targeted at overhauling that scoring system and turning into kind of a co-op game. He had to do a bit to kind of like make it backwards compatible. I think if we were actually going in, rolling up our sleeves and gutting that system, we would do it a bit more elegantly. He had to kind of make it work with all of the other systems in the game and make sure all the hooks worked. But he did an admirable job. And like Atomic, the base game is rated not very great on BGG, but with Atomic Bonds, it's rated up in like 8.2 or something. And so like I think that speaks to not only how great of a job Dane did like designing that new version of the system, but also it speaks to the core of the system and how that core was really solid, even if the scoring system didn't quite do it a good service.
He did a great job, and I want to make sure to give credit to James Niffen for coming up with that amazing title, because that was
Oh, did he?
That was a James. Yeah, that was a good one. That was really good. Like that was an awesome suggestion. I was like, oh my god, of course, that's so perfect. At least that's my recollection. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was his.
James owes. I mean, I'm pretty sure I credited James with 2 other design conversations I've had.
Well, I think also too.
I went to James all the time for like advice and stuff. He's a very
great.
smart guy.
I think it's also worth noting too that that Dane's work on Atomic Bonds is also, I think, noteworthy because those mechanics were taken out of a larger expansion that we ended up canceling, a larger like standalone expansion that we ended up canceling at the last minute. So he had to kind of like rework that, because like you were saying, like if we could have gone back and like retooled the system, we would have originally it would have we would have had a more like fully fleshed out complete rule book that would have incorporated all those things. It would have been a little easier to use, because I picked up Atomic Bonds much later, and that is, I think, my one critique of it is that it's a little cumbersome to try to unthink of like some of the rules you read and then replace them with these new ones.
Yeah, and like it's kind of stapled Frankenstein monsters onto the game.
But yeah, they're originally part of our Fallout 76 expansion, standalone expansion we were going to do, but then everyone knows, well, not everyone, but that game launched and then was not very well received, and was like super panned, and everyone seemed to really dislike it. And circumstances at the time where we had, the game sold really well, like so well that we reprinted a ton of Fallout. Like we had so many copies of Fallout. So it was doing pretty well, but then I was trying to pitch the salespeople on, we're going to do the standalone other Fallout game that costs just as much as the base Fallout game. And then that was then complicated by the fact that Fallout 76 was released and then kind of universally panned, which is a shame.
Yeah, and the core game of Fallout, because of the scoring rules and stuff, like wasn't as well received. So we have this board game that's not as well received. We have this video game that we thought was going to be huge, but then just bombs. And so you have these two, like they're not unifying into a nice picture. We know now, and we had faith, in playtesting, we knew that Dane's design really fixed the issues with the core set. But if people never even go into it because of these preconceptions, they wouldn't care. And we know now that it did fix up the core game a bunch, and 76 has stuck around and gotten better. But at the time, it was two bad things. You don't put two bad ingredients to make in your sandwich.
It was unfortunate, but we were able to salvage a little bit out of it. And like you said, we were able to make Fallout, the core game, a better experience in the end. But yeah, I do want to go on record. I really enjoy Fallout 76, even though it has bugs, and it still has bugs today. Because we said, a lot of people jump back on and play it. I actually jumped back on and played it a little bit myself. Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Still bugged. I encountered a quest, a bug that I could not progress a quest, and I had to look it up how to get past it, and it was a whole thing. I was like, man, I can't believe this bug still exists. It's been 3 years. But I'm one of those people who really, really enjoyed the concept of Fallout 76, which is like a multiplayer Fallout game where the concept behind it was you go out into the wasteland, and the only people you encounter are other players. And I thought it was a really cool concept, but it made for a really empty space. And if you ever played a Fallout role-playing game, you're kind of going from person to person, getting quests, and they're effectively just kind of nodes for your quest giving. They don't have a ton of. They have some personality to them, but they're really just quest givers, like in an MMO anyway. So in 76, you end up going to all these computer terminals that serve the same function, but there's something about that there's all the personality was gone. But I really enjoyed Fallout 76 in that state where there was no computer NPC people. But eventually they went in and they added a bunch of computer NPCs, and now it plays more like a standard Fallout game. It's fine, but it's just not kind of as artistically inventive as it was before. So I don't like it quite as much as I liked the original version. But I know I'm in the minority in that opinion that most people really, really like it more now. And it's I think still pretty fun. It for a game that uses an engine that is a single player engine and then turns it into a multiplayer engine and all this stuff they had to do on the back end to make that function. It's amazing that thing works at all. So good job, the guys who worked on that game, and good job sticking with it. I think they've shown that they were able to make it work, and it's pretty cool that it's still out today, given how universally poorly received it was when it first launched.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the retrospective. That was really interesting, guys. Anything else anybody wants to add?
No, that was great. That was fun. It was a fun walk down memory lane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I hope it was interesting to all of you listeners. Speaking of listeners, we got a few questions we'll get through real quick. D-Cheds. Since Fisher missed the Jumanji question, it'd be nice to hear which game he would be Jumanji'd into.
So this is from last one, right? It was what if you were Jumanji'd into your most recently played game? Was that the original question from last time?
Yeah, that was
okay. So I think mine is going to be. I did play Cryptid, but I think the most recent game I played is I've been playing Leviathan Wilds from some of our former coworkers, Justin, Todd, and Sam, over at Mooncrab Games. Their game is just fulfilling now, and it's kind of like the pitch is like basically Shadow the Colossus, the board game. You're all like these heroes climbing all over these colossuses, and you have kind of like it's like a tactics game, and you kind of climb up these colossuses and have to hit these weak points to destroy this corruption that's on them. I've been really enjoying it. It's a cool game, like you kind of broadcast attacks. But since Wyatt's been born, I haven't been rock climbing very much. So I think I'd be really bad at getting Jumanji into it. So I'm probably dead in my Jumanji.
Well, they're not rocks. You're climbing actual monsters, right?
That'd be much
I
easier.
mean, I think like
Yeah.
oh, so I don't need finger muscles then for that one.
They got flesh.
Don't they have like little like
Yeah.
hand axes that they use? Yeah.
Hook. Yeah, I guess in that way it's a little more
Right.
ice climbing. Still need grip strength though.
I got my copy, and I haven't busted it out yet. But I love the little meeples. Those are
Yeah,
cool.
my
looking.
copy's going. My
Yeah.
my copy's going to Corey's house, so Corey will be getting my copy. He might have it already. I don't know.
Yeah,
What's it called again? Oh,
Leviathan Wilds. Yeah.
Sweet. I love Shadow of the Colossus. All right, next question comes from Barry. Fish. Why do they call you Fisher? I know it's your surname. I know it's your surname, but everyone says hi Andrew, which means Navarro. Hi Evan. Hi Anders, and hi Fisher. It sounds so impersonal to me, like you're at the end of a food chain. Are you? No way, man.
I normally shorten the questions, but I found no way, man, kind of funny, so I left it in. But yeah, I remember at one point somebody called you Navarro, Andrew, and like you were like Navarro. That's so like like that's so impersonal.
I've gotten
But
cooler with it though. I think with the person who would call me Navarro at FFG did not like me very much, so it always had this kind of like sneering tone to it. But people at CGG called me Navarro. Like the people have started calling me Navarro just so there's no confusion between you and I when we're talking. So I'm warming up to it. I'm warming up to it.
I kind of have that reaction. Like so like just so you all know how deep this goes. My wife calls me Fish. And in fact, the other day, Sam goes like, because my mom's been staying with us to help with Wyatt. So like my mom doesn't call me Fish, obviously. And so like Sam called me, Sam called me Andy in front of her. And like, I just kind of poked my head around the corner. I'm like, what did you call me? Like, anyway, yeah, it's because of my last name. I don't know. I've just always been one of those people who gets nicknames. Like I get nicknames everywhere I go. Like multiple different jobs independently my coworkers gave me nicknames. And like honestly, it's been practical. I for a while when I like first started my game design career, I was like, I'm gonna go by Andrew Fisher instead of Andy Fisher, and like, like, and I was like, oh, should I have people call me Andrew at the office? But then like. When I started at FFG, we had like 5 Andrews. And so I was like, you know what? Let's just keep it like because all my friends called me Fish. So I was like, let's just keep it rolling. And so I just always went by my last name. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we had 5, right? Like, because it was you, Andrew Bassan, Andy Liberco, Andy Christensen started after me, but there was me. I think we had a Drew as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like who was short for Andrew. So like 5 or 6.
Andy Christensen and I had like we had this similar experience with our first name, but switched. So when him growing up, he grew up as an Andrew, and when he got older, he's like, I'm switching to Andy because I'm a grown up now. And when I was young, I went by Andy, and then when I was in my early 20s, I switched over to Andrew.
Yeah, I was the same way as you. So it's so bizarre to be thinking of Andrew.
Yeah. But he was like, I don't want that. Like, but I think now he goes by Andrew James. I think was his nom de plume.
Oh, really?
His artist credit name. You can find him on Instagram. I think his art that I haven't seen it in a while, but a couple of years ago I was checking it out, and it's pretty awesome stuff he's doing.
It's lovely art.
Andrew means man. That is the name. That is the origin of the name Andrew.
We're simple like that.
Yeah. And that's my name meaning too. Anders is just the Scandinavian Andrew. So we got 3.
Is that why your
Andrews
email is Anders the guy?
Just a dumb thing. It's a dumb thing I did 20 years ago. And now I have to like spell it out on the phone to insurance companies and stuff. Anders the guy, like my name, and then the guy. All right. Will there ever be, Cleanse wants to know, will there ever be a 4-player EBR podcast? It'll be kind of hard to capture with all that's going on, but on the other hand, it'll be very interesting to see how the game scales.
I think you meant to say playcast.
Playcast. Did I say podcast? Playcast.
I think
Playcast.
there totally should be a 4-player playcast at some point.
We managed a 3-player one in our
Yeah.
last one. So if we can fit 3, we
well,
can fit 4.
clearly
right?
you need to show up so that you can keep people like playing
Yeah,
the game correct.
know.
Yeah, everyone's like
Yeah.
missing
It
rules.
was embarrassing.
I miss rules too. I miss play. And I was sick. Nobody wanted. I had a cold after New Zealand. Nobody wanted that.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. We've also talked about like having a playcast where some people are playing and other people are just like hanging out, kind of shit talking the whole time. I think that could be fun too.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the Peanut Gallery
Yeah.
playcast.
Yeah.
I have fun watching those fundraising let's play, like someone plays Mega Man 4 or something, and there's a rows of people behind watching, and there's like a little overlay showing people contributing money to the whatever they're raising. Those are fun. Maybe we should do a fundraiser for while we play ABR and a bunch of us watch.
Mm-hmm.
I think we kind of fundraiser playcast could be cool.
Yeah.
We need to figure out live broadcasting those playcasts live. Corey is suddenly like anxious.
Yeah. Sorry, Corey.
Yeah, I think I suggested that at one, like we were talking about it and I was like, oh, can we do this live? And then like I think he immediately broke out into a sweat and listed all the things he'd have to try to figure out.
Corey.
But yeah, I think with plenty of planning and the proper equipment, we could totally do it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, finally, somebody else read this question because I don't get it.
So they Essamore wants to asked if we could see the contents of my Bears of War box, and the type of uses he employs the components to simulate. So the Bears of War box, I think I've mentioned this before.
Types of uses. I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah,
the types of.
like again for the visual content, I will show. So this is it's a box from the Gears of War board game, and it has been edited with whiteout to say Bears of War, and
By
then I
who?
replaced all of the
You.
Gears heads with cartoon bears. This is my prototype box. I think
You
I
have.
mentioned it before on the on the podcast, which is why Essamore asked about it. So this is like when I start out a board game, when I started Fallout, and like when I started some of Earthborne's various games, I almost always start with this thing just because it's awesome for rapid prototyping. So basically, the entire thing is built around wet erase markers. So I've got these 5 colors throughout this whole box, and then the box has all of these 5 colors in a bunch of different wooden components, meeples, discs, cubes, and stuff. Different components you could need. And then it's got cards, mini regular sized and tarot sized cards, and then all the cards have this lightly imprinted version of those same colors, and are white on the other side, and they're all sleeved. And so with the sleeves, once they get scuffed up, initially they're a little hydrophobic. Once they get scuffed up, you can use the wet erase markers on them. So I can, instead of like having to lay out a game, get it into TTS, print it, whatever, I can just quickly come up with concepts and then start writing cards immediately. And then I've got a couple big whiteboards, panels that I like can make boards with. And so I can basically, without ever launching a computer or anything, I can sit there and prototype a game. Like if we're playtesting it quick, like something doesn't work, you just like have a wet paper towel nearby, you just erase it and change the card right there. Like everything gets changed really fast, but it also doesn't like waste a bunch of paper from like remocking up the cards. So every one of my board game prototypes starts with this kit usually, just because it's so fast and flexible. It's actually inspired a little bit by Atlas Games makes the White Box, which is like a prototype kit. I saw that and I was like, I think when they were like originally kickstarting it or something, I was like, oh, I should kickstart that. I'm like, wait, no, I could just make that, and like I can make it better, using this wet erase markers and stuff. So I just made it for myself. So as far as what uses things are used, how the various components are used on whatever I want. Like I try not to get too limited. Like these colors, sometimes I use them because the cards are aligned with that color of player. Other times I just use this as the face of the card, so that's like different card types of the different colors. Sometimes I just ignore the colors entirely. Like I really, no component is sacred, and I just kind of bend and destroy the components as is needed to try to test different stuff. So it's designed to be as flexible as possible in like mocking up any board game component you could want really quickly. The other fun story about this is when we did that trip to Bethesda to demo the game for them. Once I'm done out of the rapid prototyping stage, I was still using this box to hold my printed components for my prototype, and so I was carrying around everything in this Bears of War box, and so I just brought this to Bethesda, and this is the box. I think I even asked you before we left, Andrew. I was like, should I put this in a more professional box? And you're like, it's fine.
It makes me think of when you did that game jam at FFG.
Oh yeah, it's very kind of
cool.
Game jam like. So I think this box has been to Middle Earth Enterprises and Bethesda.
Yeah. Journeys in Middle Earth was also in that box, right? Yeah.
Yep. So this box went to Middle Earth Enterprises. It's in that meeting room. I think there was Oscars in the case on the wall. Spending the presents.
Yeah, I think they were what's the music one? Not Emmys. That's TV. Grammys. Yeah, I think they're Grammys.
Yeah, or the Grammys.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever.
It was Saul Zaitz, or whoever owned it at the time. Now it's been embraced, of course, and owned by the Embracer Group.
So anyway, that is Bears of War. That is it is. I've had it for like 10 plus years, and it served me well.
That's awesome. Good question, SMore. That was one of the more interesting things I've ever seen on this show.
and think of all you've seen.
Thank you.
I love seeing people's creative tools and stuff. That's really cool. All right, time for my indie game corner. Balatro.
Still playing Balatro?
All right. I really like it. I'm still into it. Fisher, did you fall off yet? Or did you fall off a long time ago?
Much, but I was in New Zealand, so I didn't have as much of an opportunity to play it.
It keeps going. It keeps staying fun for me. Every run just feels very unique. There's so many things to unlock, and I have the desire to unlock everything for whatever reason. It's really well designed. It's designed by one guy. I love that. I love that story. And but I have to suggest another game since that's what I do. I started playing this game called Mini Shoot Adventures. It's basically you play as a little spaceship, but the map looks very much like a Zelda top-down map, and the combat is all like a shooter, like a twin-stick shooter, and it's very promising. People really like it. It's pretty cute and cool, and I'm excited to play more of that.
What's it called again? I'm sorry.
Mini Shoot, one word, with an apostrophe for some reason at the end. Adventures.
Yeah, why does it have a...
I don't know.
No, here we go. This is classic Anders indie game corner.
Yeah.
Cute little like Zelda-like game that I had to Google.
That's right.
I
always Google it.
This is perfect.
Doesn't look like there's any jumping in it though, so pass.
No jumping.
There's no jumping in Zelda. At least not Breath of the Wild, I guess.
There's jumping in Zelda too.
Makes me think of
Link's Adventure.
Oh, is that the side scroller?
He's jumping in that.
Okay.
I thought there was just jumping. You fall off ledges. Was there actually jumping?
There was jumping in Zelda 2, Link's Adventure.
Oh.
The second one.
Oh, the side scroller. I was thinking
of
the
side
Super
scrolling.
Nintendo. Yes. Yes. I got pretty far in that game, and I
never understood how to play that game. It was too confusing.
It was hard as a kid.
Yeah, it was hard
for sure. Mini shoot is fun so far. All right, Evan, what are you into?
Yeah, I'll be real quick because I am not into a whole lot lately. I finally finished Fallout, the series. Megan was watching it with me for a little bit, but then she kind of dropped off.
She fell off.
So I started watching it in the mornings.
Fell out.
Yeah, she fell off. Fell off. Well, yeah. I've been watching it in the mornings because I get up so early. And I finished it today, and I thought it was great. I kind of got, last time I mentioned I thought it was so violent and I wasn't used to it, but the show just desensitized me once more, and it became, some of the violence became funny. Is like the severed head thing kept showing up.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It just like, they were just, everyone was so natural around like a severed head that it became like goofy. Anyways, it was great.
That's one of those. That's one of those stories. So you're better off not thinking about it too much. As soon as you start thinking about it, you're like, wait. Does that make? That doesn't make any sense. But see, just don't worry about it. It's fine. It's a video game show.
I
it's
loved
fine.
when I loved the Max the Squire.
Yeah, Maximus
that was with Maximus when he got his foot stepped on or whatever. Sorry if it's spoilers. The way he reacted to that was, I don't know, just so comical to me. But
the other guy. No, Maximus. Maximus is the guy who stepped on his foot.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. On like the second or third to last episode.
Is it that actor, that blonde-haired guy?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just got kind of a funny cadence and delivery. And
Johnny Pemberton. He's from here.
Oh yeah,
is he?
Yeah. He looks like he's from Minnesota.
I met him once. Yeah. All right.
But yeah, anyways, I'm gonna begin my Fallout adventure. I'm gonna probably pick up the first one on Steam.
That's awesome.
But I'm a little intimidated by it because everyone says it's really hard, and I was watching some play, or just some gameplay videos, and it just kind of drops you into it. There's no new age kind of hold your hand a little bit into the game. It just, you just start playing, and I don't want to get frustrated with it right away. So I'm gonna
find it.
Just do a little bit of research.
It's not hard. Like,
okay.
You get killed by rats right away.
You've played video games before. It's not hard. It's not.
Sure. I was a little confused. There must be some sort of like battle sequence.
There's an action point system.
The action point system, and the way this person was playing, they weren't doing combat. They were just navigating during this action point sequence. And I'm like, is that what the whole game is? You just have to wait to move a little bit and then wait
only when you're in combat.
Okay, and then so that revealed itself as I watched it, but it wasn't very like self-explanatory.
Like I said, the only, I think the challenge comes into like that old school RPG quest tracking where there's none. You know, like where there's not, it doesn't lead you anywhere. Like,
it's in the background.
Yeah. You have to actually, I don't know, remember stuff.
Just have to have
take little notes, and you can definitely get into situations where this is just your life now, and you just need to restart.
Oh, really?
And there's some obscure, hard to find stuff. I remember as a kid, I drove around that wasteland for so long looking for something that I replayed every game when I started working on the board game. And like, I remember getting that same spot as an adult, and like, I won't lie, I just looked it up and I was like, I remember this. I remember looking for this for hours as a child, and like, it wasn't because I was like some idiot kid. It's because this thing is hard as it is so hard to find.
It's funny because I don't consider myself to have a very good memory for certain things, but every time I play Minecraft, I remember the geography of Minecraft really well, of each world I create, and I don't know why that sticks with me. So maybe that quirk will translate into this, possibly. I don't know.
Don't you create your own worlds in Minecraft though?
Yeah, but every single time I've created a world, I don't really forget the layout of that world. Like, I can kind of think of all the worlds I've created and that parts I've explored. And
compared to modern video game worlds, that world is comparatively small. So I think you'll feel like, at the time it was like, whoa. Now it's like,
yeah. Okay. I'm just interested in experiencing the culture of Fallout, I guess, through that from the first game going forward. So
the Fallout 2 will probably get you a bit like, so it kind of has, it really found the tone that is stuck with the rest of the series a lot more in 2. It very much like 1 takes itself a lot more seriously, and then 2 just stuck its tongue fully in its cheek and like is probably the most sarcastic, funny the games have been. 3 got a little more self-serious again. Not as much, but it still has its irreverence. But I think 2 probably matches with like the tone of the games that has carried on the most.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
I was considering trying it too, but I'm looking at these graphics and I don't think I can.
They're great.
If you look at the Steam page, just like when it's like the actual face of people, I don't like that.
When I was watching,
it's animated though. It's cool
gameplay of it.
Oh, is it?
When you first play the game, you're given your first mission, which is to like replace the water chip or something, which is referenced in the show. And the guy giving the quest is startling, like the way he looks. And he's just right in your face.
So did you get it on Steam already, Evan?
I think that's what I was.
No, I was watching someone play it on YouTube just to.
I recommend getting it on Good Old Games instead, because then you actually can own it.
Okay.
You don't have to have Steam or anything like that. You can download it. It's that is, from what I understand, that is the recommended way to play the game. Is from Good Old Games.
Okay. Cool.
What's
you
the
own
difference?
It, as opposed to Steam, where it's all locked behind Steam.
Oh,
you know,
I don't know.
platforms, digital use. Like, there's no Good Old Games just gives you the game, like like they used to.
All right, Fisher.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I've been playing a little Leviathan Wild since it showed up. On the video game front, since when we were traveling in New Zealand, I managed to play a little bit. I didn't get as much stuff on my laptop or anything, but I downloaded Sea of Stars for for my Switch, which is kind of the Chrono Trigger alike RPG from last year. And I've been really enjoying it. It's like not. I haven't, when I play games, like, I kind of can enjoy games in a few different ways. And like, I think probably the main way I've spent a lot of my adult life enjoying games is like, there's like a certain academic element to it where I'm like, almost can't turn off the designer brain and kind of feel like I'm playing for research. And I feel like I need to be playing the like most cutting edge games to kind of see how they're using design and critique it and think about it. With Sea of Stars, I'm not doing any of that. I've just been trying to kind of enjoy, like, just kind of play it and enjoy it for like the nostalgia, which is probably good because like I think that it's not quite as deep or like very like mechanically innovative in a way that I think would engage the designer side of my brain. So in that way, I don't know if I like recommend it, but it's very pretty. Like it's like it kind of gets that kind of retro RPG vibes, SNES era, like in ways that like I've really been enjoying.
I really liked. I played maybe 3 to 4 hours of it. I'm not sure how far you are into it. And I felt like I liked the art direction. I think that the story couldn't quite hook me. So I just kind of, and like you said, the gameplay, at least in the early going, is not super engaging. So I kind of fell off, but I really wanted to like it. So I think I started playing it as soon as it came out.
I think the kind of locks system with like the tactical battle keeps like the moment to moment of battles interesting, more interesting than just spamming attack when you're like in a fight that's like, like this is the best thing I can do. It keeps that like the tactical element very cool, and in that way the game feels kind of modern because like old school JRPGs tended to be a little more flat on the tactical
space. They might add more layers to it though as it goes, because oftentimes games like that do that where it's they kind of ease you in maybe a little too much, and then until you get to the more interesting stuff. So I'll be curious to hear if you stick with it.
And you love.
Oh, go ahead,
Right.
Anders.
Well, I know, Andrew, you loved The Messenger, right? That's the same world, like takes place in the same world.
I never played The Messenger. I watched my son play The Messenger. I played a little bit at the beginning, and then Sebastian played it, and I really enjoyed the was it like the shopkeeper in that. I thought that was really clever and hilarious. But I didn't finish that. But that's that's like a platformer. This one has a lot more story to it. It's very, very narrative focused. There's a lot of dialogue.
Well, it's the same. Yeah,
it's the same IP. Yeah.
I was just curious at how it.
Yeah, I wonder if I don't know. I should probably
really
maybe play The Messenger, because that game is, I think, looked really, really cool, and I think would be something I really enjoy. It's got so much like Twitch jumping that I'm almost 50 years old, Anders.
Yeah.
Almost.
Oh wow.
This.
Andrew, let's do you now.
Man, all the
dog starts losing its mind.
Now they're done. They're done.
Let the dogs out.
Am
I right?
So this past week, 2 weeks ago, my wife was out of town. She was in Mexico running a wellness retreat, which looked awesome. So I was here with my boys, and that was exciting. Actually, I had a pretty good leveling up of my Spanish skills while she was gone, because I was had to do more of that on my own, which was cool. I've actually had people compliment me recently on my Spanish, which has been pretty sweet. So I must be making some amount of progress. But since it was, Guys Week, we did video games pretty much every night. So we started playing Halo together. My son Sam and I. So Sam's been playing a lot of Fortnite. I've been trying to hey, maybe try playing some other stuff. What is it, Fisher?
Oh no, I was asking
Halo 1. Yeah, starting at the beginning. The remastered edition, but with the classic graphics, because the remastered graphics look terrible. It's one of those versions where you can toggle on the classic graphics or put on the new skins by just pushing a button. So that's kind of cool. But you should definitely play with the original graphics. The lighting works better. There's something about the lighting with the revised version where it's really hard to see some stuff. But I'm no software engineer. I don't know how to. I'm sure that must be a challenge. But yeah, so we played through pretty much a level a night on heroic difficulty, and Sam and Sebastian would just switch controllers. If one of them died, they'd switch controllers, and lots of yelling if they died suddenly by falling off something or accidentally get blown up with a grenade, because there's friendly fire. So there's a few times where one of them would run in front of me just as I was trying to melee something, so they'd run in front and then I'd immediately kill them.
Hit somebody with a warthog.
Exactly. Or just a banshee just moves back just a little bit and you just die. Lots of really funny moments like that. But yeah, we played through the entire thing. It was super fun. It was super fun. There were some moments where I think every time we're like, hey, do we want to play another level? It was almost always a mistake, because some of those Halo levels are very long, and especially if you're unfamiliar with them, you could die a lot, and there can be a lot of frustration. And then it would start to get kind of late, and then everyone's getting grumpy and angry, and and then
that's part of it, though.
Right. But yeah, we finished it off, and it was really fun. So I think we have the Master Chief Collection on Game Pass. So I think we're going to go on to Halo 2. I've not played Halo 2 since it came out. Yeah, I was one of those people who was infuriated at the end of Halo 2 because of how it ended. Because did you ever play Amanders?
No, first person games make me
okay.
nauseous. So I'm not any first person game. I'm out. So don't include me in this conversation.
Yeah, so I mean, Halo 2 was a really
Thank you,
big
though.
deal, right? Hold on a second. There's someone here. 1 minute.
Someone honked a horn and he's now speaking.
All right.
How does that work?
Um,
Maybe they weren't associated.
I think the guy here. There's someone here. I think to fix the shower head. Showers down here are awesome. They're like electric showers, so like they don't have any hot water heaters. So like, and the water's not very cold, obviously. So it's just like this electric heater, so you have infinite hot water in your shower. It's pretty awesome. Not that you need hot water.
Cool.
Usually, it's usually cold or lukewarm is
You want to
best.
cool down.
But anyway, yeah, I played like Halo 2 when it first came out. So angry because it ends on a cliffhanger, and you don't even get to play as Master Chief in the final mission. I was incensed, and I had a cat at the time, and she was sick and dying, and I was playing Halo 2 while she was like dying in my lap. It was very sad. So I have all these like mixed emotions around all these emotions around Halo 2. So I remember that experience really, really well.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, playing Halo, gonna play Halo 2 again, and then I think we're gonna go through the whole thing. I'll do the whole thing with the boys. I think that'd be super fun.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
that's about it. That's about it.
Do they have any snarky things to say about the graphics?
At some point, Sam did say like these graphics suck. I was like, "Come on, man, they're good." He was like, "These are terrible."
They were so great at the
Yeah,
time.
and since he's been playing so much Fortnite, and it's like kind of just a thing he's been doing. There's so much like so many things like popping and exploding and lighting up, and like it's like playing like a bubblegum machine.
Yeah.
And so like when he was like looking for weapons and ammo, he's like, "Where's the ammo?" Like, because there's not just sitting there like bobbing like this giant object for you to pick up.
Yeah.
It's like you just gotta walk over the gun, man. It's like, "Where is it?" I'm like, "Well, you're just think of where you killed the guys and go run over where they are and pick up their stuff." So
He's like, I can't instantaneously build a house around myself.
It's so funny.
What kind of game is this?
exactly. Gotta give him a little education. I did that with Sebastian, like with my kids just in general. I try to get him to play the classics. Get him a good education of background of video games.
Have you ever played Fortnite?
I've never played Fortnite. I've watched a lot of Fortnite.
Wild. One of the most popular games ever. It's such a wild idea. You shoot people and you build stuff around you. Just out of nowhere, people love it. I played it quite a bit for like 2 weeks, and I played it. I was addicted.
So that
to
didn't
it,
make you
and
sick.
I never
Third person doesn't, even if it's the same type of thing.
No,
Interesting.
Third person's fine.
Interesting.
First person, it's got the whole field of view is kind of imitating your field of view.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it has the potential to mess with what your brain thinks is going on
Yeah.
a little more. Like, wait, am I moving or not? So yeah, I know it sucks. There's a lot of games I've wanted to love, but I just get sick. And they're often like shooting guns, and I don't really love shooting guns.
Exactly.
So. But I think there's one more thing we have to do.
Yeah, we may have buried the lead on that one. Sam, are you there? Yeah. All right. So, okay. Somebody posted like, do you all remember? Do you all remember?
Hi, Sam.
Who is responsible for starting this? For starting my. Okay. If any. I know you're watching, whoever started this. So you tell me either in the YouTube comments or on Discord who started the Fisher should cut his hair thing. But I know it was one of you. So
it wasn't one of us?
Mad at.
I think it was like Corey. Wasn't it one of us?
Oh, was it?
I think it was like
No, I
suggested
think
by
it
one
was
of us.
someone on Discord, I thought.
Okay.
Well, anyway,
okay.
I told the fan community that I would cut my pandemic hair if we got 2.5 million. They were asking for $2 million. I at least upped it to 2.5 million. But we're probably going to hit 3, so it was going to happen regardless. So I have brought my hair into this ponytail. I'm actually going to donate it. Where did we decide to donate? I can't remember. I think it's Kids with Hair Loss. It's very straightforward charity name, but so we're gonna donate this. So it's all bundled up.
Thank you for your service.
And
thank you, Fisher's Hair. We'll miss you.
And to get the maximum length out of it, I've just ponytailed it on top of my head, and we're just cutting it. So I'm gonna have the most awful like Friar Tuck.
Yeah.
So
let's go.
You should use a knife. Like
use a knife. Like you've dishonored yourself, and you have to cut
like a samurai, a samurai. He said he's using the tiniest scissors.
Fisher's
She's getting
durable hair.
yeah, we have a very tiny pair of scissors. So bear with me here.
Oh no,
it's not gonna happen. Little piece by piece.
Because we originally we had the Fiskars, and we were like, this is going to be awful. So we got this sharper pair of scissors. Yep.
Fiskars is top of the line.
There
we go. There it goes. End of an era.
There it is.
Oh, nice. But now you have the cool like little top knot. You can just do that.
Yeah, the tiny. Yeah. For the moment it lasts here. Do we want to see how
let's
awful
see it.
this is?
Yeah, let's see how it looks now. It's gonna be a little bowl cut.
Yeah, you can do like a. Oh,
Actually,
that looks.
it's
You
really
look like
long.
young Indiana Jones from.
It's really awkward because it's like right here. It's like short.
Short.
Oh yeah, that's
good.
that's a good look.
Buzz.
Hey Fisher,
that man's
can
been
you
in the
say
woods.
It belongs in a museum.
Yeah, you're like young Indiana Jones, like River Phoenix.
Yeah, you look like
River Phoenix.
Oh no, yeah, River Phoenix. Yeah, cool. You should keep it like that.
I don't have a Harrison Ford impression.
Yeah, that actually looks pretty good, man. You might be onto something.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's a little crazy back here.
Oh
no! Oh no! Did he cut out?
No, he's back.
You're back.
All right, Fisher's audio is gone, but we're at the end of the show anyway. Thank you for entertaining us with that, Andrew. Fisher. I mean, Fish. And thanks for joining us, everybody. And we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Fisher just holding up his braid, by the way.